there. I wanted to give you a little 5-minute Feldy to reinforce the lesson that I did today called Pelvic Circles. So first, just come to lie on your back and do all the usual stuff with feeling yourself against the floor. Do a quick body scan on your own. And then bring your knees up to standing. And we begin the movement with a pelvic tilt. So we take our tailbone towards the floor and away from our floor. And we just start to notice, as we do this simple movement, we keep it within our comfort zone. We never go as far as we can go right away. We just let the movement grow organically. And we start to notice how this movement in the pelvis is reflecting through the rest of us. So just feel how it's traveling up and down your spine. And maybe your chin and your head are reflecting the movement of the pelvis. And then again, maybe they're not. And that's the point of this lesson, is we're starting to look for these places where we're impeding the movement by holding tension. So if your head is not moving and reflecting the movement of the head leg, so as your tailbone goes towards the floor, let your chin come towards your chest, and as your tailbone goes away from the floor, let your chin go away from your chest. And just do this many times. And start checking in with your favorite places that you hold tension, like in your chest or your jaw, in your belly, and just see if you can let it go, your shoulders. And breathe in as you take your tailbone towards the floor, and out as you take your tailbone away. And then take a quick rest. And now draw a line between your right hip joint and your left hip joint, and trace that line between your hip joints by pressing the right hip joint into the floor and then your left hip joint into the floor. It's the opposite hip is coming up a little bit off the floor, not a whole lot. And just trace this line. And start to notice that there's a little bit of a twist in your spine. And that twist is going to travel up your spine. And see if you can notice how far up it goes. And see if that movement is being reflected in your head. And if it's not, go ahead and turn your head to the right as you press your right hip joint. And turn your head to the left as you press your left hip joint. So we're just tracing this line. Let your breath find a rhythm that makes the movement easier. And then let that go and rest for just a moment. So now we've basically drawn, we have 4 points, and we've drawn these 2 lines up and down and left and right. And so now we want to join these points in a circle. So you take your hip to the right, and then, round way, go down to the tailbone, and then to the left hip joint, and then up to this area in your lower lumbar. You just draw this circle. And it does not have to be a big circle. It can be as small as you want it to be. In fact, you can make it so small nobody would even know you're moving, and the nervous system can't tell the difference. And so now, let go of any tension you may be holding. I just noticed I was holding a little bit of my shoulders. You can let go of your jaw. And notice how your head may be reflecting this movement. And if it's not, if the impulse is not going through, then let your head, go ahead and move your head so that it is reflecting the movement. It's kind of priming the pump to the nervous system and making that suggestion that they might want to be going together. And when you're ready, change directions. Notice if it's any easier or harder. And then pause. And you can even rest for a moment in between. So now in this lesson, what we want to do is we want to start introducing some impediments to the movement. So the first one we want to add is turning the head to the right. So turn your head to the right and begin in this movement of these pelvic circles. And start to notice how this is changing the movement. Now it's going to cause a contraction on this whole right side, in particular up in the neck. So the movement's not going to go up into the head exactly. And the left side is going to have to work harder. It's going to have to start finding new connections to help with this movement as your head is turned to the right. So do that for a little while, and then when you're ready, you can turn your head to the left. And here again, you notice that the left side is now not contributing as much to the movement. The right side is having to do more. And the nervous system is figuring out how to balance that out. And then bring your head back up to the middle. You can change directions. And then when you come back to the middle, notice how it's probably a little bit easier. So in this lesson, we added a bunch of different variations in contractions that made the movement different. So another one might be to cross your right leg over your left and then do this movement. And you notice how this is different now because the right leg is not contributing. The left side is having to work harder. And the nervous system is having to figure out how to balance this. And then change directions. This direction's a little bit harder. And do that for a little while. As long as you want. And always noticing how is the head reflecting the movement in the pelvis. What we want is a free channel from our pelvis through our spine up into our head. And then you can change legs. And change directions. But bring awareness to the movement in terms of where are you holding tension? What's impeding the movement? What's the difference between this movement and the last one? And then we did a whole bunch of variations on this. Another one was that we had our legs long and we let our feet start to help us. And now this restricts the movement of the pelvis forward and back. Now we're doing it in 2 dimensions. And so we notice this connection from our feet through our pelvis up to our head. And again, noticing how the reflection of the movement in the foot is following in the pelvis, which is also following in the head. And then change directions. And if you don't want to do any of the variations, that's fine. Just doing the pelvic circles for 5 minutes every day is going to make a huge difference in your life. The pelvis is where we hold a lot of tension, and when we can let go of that tension, it frees up all of our movement. And especially what's important about this lesson is that we're opening up that channel between the pelvis and the head. And the head needs to be free to move so that we can maintain our balance and we can have easy free movement.